For Cybercrime Radio, I'm Amanda Glassner, Deputy Editor at Cybercrime Magazine. I attended the 2026 RSA conference where we caught up with Rami Sass, co-founder and CEO at Mend.io. This episode is brought to you by Mend.io, the leading application security solution helping organizations reduce application risk effectively. To learn more about our sponsor, visit Mend.io. Rami, how are you today?
Doing well, thank you. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
So before we dive into our topic, which is AI changing the AppSec threat model, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for Mend?
Sure. So I'm one of the co-founders of Mend, and I've been around for 15 years with the company, and currently I lead our AI security division.
Perfect. So models and agents are a lot less predictable than normal applications today. And unlike deterministic software, getting different results for the same input is common, which makes AI-based systems much harder to test and validate. Do you agree with this statement? And in general, how is this working toward what you guys are building at Mend and impacting your process?
Sure. Yeah, first I agree, and that's kind of at the heart of the paradigm shift that we're seeing in how enterprises or organizations or security professionals are even thinking about securing AI systems or AI-powered systems, because fundamentally, all of the existing approaches and practices and tools that are used to test software and test applications, I don't want to say break down, but they are unable to properly test the AI technologies, the models and agents, as you had said, which are unpredictable, and as opposed to normal or deterministic software that, given the same input, will provide the same output every time. With a model or an agent, that's almost never the case, right? It's the normal course of business for them to give you different responses and different outcomes and different results for the same input. And so you almost cannot test them with existing practices. You have to reinvent the way that you test agents and models for security holds for everything, for quality, for persistence, for performance, but more than anything, security, because that's where you're most sensitive and that's where you have the most to lose.
Now, building on that, agents, do you think they could potentially overuse or abuse permissions and access, right, whether that be intentionally or unintentionally?
Yeah, so I think we're beyond the point of having this be an opinion. There are ample examples from around the world and many different softwares and applications that have been behaving or misbehaving or abusing, sometimes not maliciously, oftentimes not even maliciously, their permissions, their access rights, their ability to connect with systems and be given access to different tools, be it the disk or network or even shared memory or a database, where, again, with deterministic software, if you give it access to a database and you only have it run 1 or 2 or whatever, 10 given queries, it will only ever run those queries. It cannot be creative and start running different queries, whereas an agent, the whole purpose of it is to be creative, and it will almost certainly do things outside of what you think it's going to do. And so that's a real security risk that we see come up over and over again in almost any system that has an agent in it that has access to something, right? A server, a memory, a database, something. If it has access to it, it's going to do things with it.
That makes sense. Now, can you talk to us about models and how they've been compared to a black box of sorts?
Yes, so again, from the perspective of white box, black box, gray box testing of software, where the more into the application you have visibility to, the better testing you can run, right? So if you can see the code, if you see the infrastructure, if you have access to third-party dependencies, if you know the container operating system, then your ability to test security for that application goes up tenfold. So if you have an application that is written in source code, which all applications are, and you can look inside the source code and have it be a white box test, then you can run more advanced testing and find more vulnerabilities. That's not the case for a model, right? Either large language model or any type of model only has zeros and ones in it, right? These are matrices or vectors that store data and correlate with each other, but there is no practical way to statically analyze them, right? The only real way to do any kind of testing for security issues with models is to run them. Like, you don't need to run them in production, you can run them in some testing sandbox, but you have to run them and then test real input or simulated input and get output, and through that sort of iteration, try and see if you identify any misbehaviors or security or potential security risks, which, again, you will never be able, never, but there are no existing practices currently to be able to do it without running the model.
I gotcha. Now we're recording from RSA, so taking into consideration everything we just talked about, what are you hearing from customers and vendors on this topic?
So funnily enough, RSA is almost, if you didn't know what the conference was about, you'd think it's an AI conference,
right,
and not so much security, because everyone's thinking about it, talking about it. In reality, I don't think AI applications make up the majority of applications in the world. I think they make up a very tiny amount, maybe 2 or 3% or 5 maybe at most. But those are the applications that both enterprises and vendors care most about and spend most of the time thinking about and worrying about and figuring out how to secure, which makes sense because, again, I think we're at a point where deterministic software is pretty well defended, and there are very good tools for it. And AI is, presently at least, more of a Wild West kind of situation where there's much more exposure, and again, there are no good practices yet. The books haven't been written yet, and so it's anyone's game, and you have different people, you ask 10 different people what AI security means to them, you'll get 10 different answers. Right, so we're still in very early days of the market, still early adopter, still sort of cutting edge, both on the technology side from the vendors, but also from the practitioners who are trying to get their bearings and figure out what they're even supposed to be thinking about and what kind of problems they even have and how to prioritize them. So, on the one hand, there's a lot of unknowns, but on the other, it's very exciting times, right? And you get to participate in sort of this category creation, which is always fun.
For Cybercrime Radio, I'm Amanda Glassner, Deputy Editor at Cybercrime Magazine. This episode was brought to you by Mend.io, the leading application security solution helping organizations reduce application risk effectively. To learn more about our sponsor, visit Mend.io. And for more of our media, visit our website at cybersecurityventures.com.